indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
What is your pleasure on the consent agenda? I move approval.
Second.
All in favor? The next select board meeting is Thursday, February 2nd, 5:30 here at the town hall. Any select board comments, announcements?
Nothing.
We'll jump right into agenda 1, business item number 1, Androscoggin to Kennebec Trail project overview and consideration of memorandum of agreement in support of the project. Ruth Indrick from Kennebec Estuary Land Trust and Tim Blair from Blair Nonprofit Advisors will provide an overview.
Hi.
Hi.
Thanks so much for having us at the meeting tonight. So we wanted to, the Androscoggin to Kennebec Trail is something that I think an original study was done by Maine DOT in 2002. And so this would be a bike path that would connect from the bike path in Brunswick to Bath, and with places to get off along the way as it intersects roads in West Bath. And so it would probably connect to Congress Ave in Bath. And so it's a 7.5 mile stretch of bike trail that would allow for all sorts of users. And it's a project that when it was originally proposed in 2002, that original study was done. And then I think Brunswick and Bath were really enthusiastic, and I'm not sure, I think we had worked with the town administrator of West Bath at that time in like 2013-ish. And talked they talked to Maine DOT to get funding to put this project on the work plan for engineering designs. Originally it got put on the plan for engineering, but then Maine DOT changed its policy and basically said they wouldn't fund engineering designs unless you had all the money for construction at the same time. And this is even at that time, it was a $10 million project. So the project got put on the back burner. Right now, with all the infrastructure money available and a lot of talk about climate resilience, building this bike path, having this like safe pedestrian use for place for pedestrians and bikers, potentially for people to commute or just to get off the road and be healthy, seems like it would be a really well-supported project and could potentially be really competitive. So it seems like there might be an option right now, if we act on it, to try and get money to make this project happen. Where it's at right now is this original feasibility study was done. The next step would be getting funding for engineering. And to do that, we would need, we need the communities along the route to show support. We would need 100% need, but we need to show that support to Maine Department of Transportation and then have them see the communities that are behind this and be willing to throw their support behind an application to get funding to work on the next step. Because it's just in the feasibility study stage, the next step for engineering would allow a chance for the town to provide input on how it actually is laid out. So those decisions haven't been made yet. And I think what Tim and I wanted to ask tonight is for the select board to approve the memorandum of agreement that we sent around before the meeting, the draft version, that would just give support, express that the town supports having a trail and is willing to commit staff time to attend meetings and try to work on advancing this project to the next steps. It doesn't commit the town to it doesn't commit any funding from the town. It's just a commitment of support. And so the draft MOU went to the Brunswick Town Council, last week?
Nope, this week on Tuesday night, and they approved it, and that will be going to
Sorry,
the,
who approved that one?
the Brunswick Town Council.
Okay.
And BAF will be approving it on February 1st. The assumption is it will be approved by BAF on February 1st, so.
And you'll notice I added several letters of support to your packets.
I was just curious, looking at the map, do you have any idea why MDOT wanted to move along Route 1 rather than along the old Brunswick Road?
Yeah, so even though it's so much prettier along Old Brunswick Road,
Well,
the
it's
problem is
safer.
that, along Old Brunswick Road, there are like hundreds of different right-of-ways that you'd need to cross if that path was built along there, whereas the Route 1
already has the
right-of-way,
right of way.
Maine DOT already has it, so it would just be very simple to build it in there right away.
Simple, strikes me as being.
Well,
Compared to the other options.
It's rather lumpy in
that
there,
one
Yeah.
piece.
Right. There are some lumpy spots, that's the
Yes.
point,
To use the geological term.
yeah.
And here are some maps that were made back during the original planning process, I think where they looked at some of those sections in more detail. I don't necessarily think that the end product is going to be exactly like what's shown in these maps. But I can leave these with you if that would be.
Yeah, sure, I can keep them on file in case anybody has any questions.
Yeah, I do.
Well, we're also, there's a lot of other information, so we didn't want to kind of do a complete overwhelm and like a slideshow and all that. That can be provided at a later date. And we're going to be hosting this information on a website somewhere that folks can look at. If you ever want to browse through those designs and all that, that's certainly something we can do.
That'll be helpful.
Would it be about the width of the pathway that you can see from the highway in Brunswick?
The
14 feet wide.
proposal is 14 feet wide, yeah. There might be some places where it would be modified based on, challenges of the location, the vestibule.
And the same sort of fencing? I'm sorry, am I allowed to ask a question?
I don't know.
Why
Can
not?
you-
If you
ask
a question, please just state your name.
Okay, Cindy Fahey, I'm a resident of West Bath. Will it have the same fencing that the Brunswick
So
path has?
I think it depends on the area where it is. So some sections of the Brunswick path had to be like right up and against the highway, just
Yes.
based on like the narrow section between the river.
Yeah.
I think because there isn't a river, I think it'd be able to be a little bit farther away. There would be some fencing. I know that a lot of, I don't know how much design has changed since that Brunswick path was built, but it is loud along there, and maybe there are some design modifications that they could do to like help do some sound blocking and just make that a little more pleasant than when it's really noisy. I don't know exactly, but I think that there are probably some design options that would be that could be discussed.
And there are some sections that go further away from the road and may go off the state's right of way to some other portions of property, which would have a different feel to it as well.
There's this river between West Bath and
Yes, there is.
Brunswick. And we're talking about a new bridge or?
So I think that the original plans had the path kind of hooked on to the current bridge that's there. I don't know if that's going to be what a new set of engineering designs would propose. It would need a bridge over that. I know that some folks in Brunswick have been looking at those plans. Maine DOT has raised some concerns about that, and that is definitely the most expensive section of the trail. But,
That makes sense.
yeah.
So it says in 2013, they were looking for a $40,000 local share. Is that
So
still an obligation on
we
the?
had raised that at that time. It was the 20% match for the engineering costs, and that money's actually been sitting in the bank since then.
So there is $40,000 that's been allocated, so you're not looking for additional funding for that?
Nope.
That's correct, yeah, that's right. It's already in the bank, yeah.
I think that I mean, with DOT projects, often they require a 20% match, but I don't know, with some of the new infrastructure bill money, it might be less, which would be really exciting.
So what you need from us tonight, should we choose to give it, would be signatures on the draft.
It would just be a motion to allow the town administrator to sign.
So that would indicate, that would be an indication to MDOT that we were supportive and interested in the project.
I just want to clarify, there's no financial commitment.
There's no financial commitment in this document.
On behalf of the town, so.
I move approval of the agreement and authorize Christine Coleman, town administrator, to be signatory and to work on the project.
I second it.
Thank you all.
Thank you so much.
Like, is happy.
Good.
We'll be in touch.
Very good.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Bell.
Thank you. Thank you.
Freed up some chairs, apparently.
Thank you.
Sorry.
It should be noted that the previous time they talked about the bike trail, they never even talked to us. They talked about that and Brunswick and Benton talked about that. So this is good, at least they're talking to us.
Yeah, that's very good.
I thought we were absent from the timeline, but I didn't want to bring up a sensitive subject.
So let's go to business item number 2, Broadband Committee, discussion of opportunity to participate in a regional fiber optic installation involving a grant proposal to the Maine Connectivity Authority.
So moved.
And if you can introduce yourself as you speak.
Sure, I'm Robert Webb, a resident of West Bath and a member of the task force. And I'm joined by another committee member here, the task force member. And what we are here to ask and discuss as needed is the opportunity that's been presented not only to West Bath, but all of the communities within Maine to participate in the broadband initiative that's funded largely at this point by the federal government through the ARP legislation. There have been several opportunities to access those funds. As I understand it, the last significant opportunity will close this spring, and that opportunity will open sometime between February and where the end date is a little bit uncertain, but will close probably not later than May. It's an opportunity for the applicants, and the applicants will technically be the service providers, the ISPs, that can be, with which communities can join individually or in groups. And by making a contribution, it's unclear, could be as little as $0 and as much as, well, the range is between $15 and $150 per location. That's a location whether it's commercial or residential. Again, it can be zero, but with communities willing to make a contribution or participation in an application, they'll be eligible to be considered for federal funding. And I think probably the most important takeaway from this is, while there are millions of dollars available, obviously you can't access any of it unless you apply and the application is granted. And once this money goes away, it will be gone. This is an opportunity to have broadband made available to all members of the community here on a subsidized basis that again, once the opportunity to get that subsidy is gone, it is gone. So I guess if my fellow task force member wants to add anything to that?
I have,
Just to note where the rubber meets the road is.
I'm sorry, could you introduce yourself?
My name is Steve Winter. I'm on the Broadband Task Force. At this point, we're still talking, trying to do whatever we can to open the town to grants that may support this effort with road is if the town actually had to cough up some money, and that would be the very difficult situation to fully evaluate. But in terms of at least keeping the ball rolling, be open to whatever grants and funding sources might be available through the temporary federal largesse, would be worthwhile to do that, and we'll face the tough questions as they come up. But until we, again, as previous presenters said, if you don't get in there and encourage moving forward, you are out of the situation.
How will it work in the future, assuming that somebody else, after the fiber optic stuff is installed, after somebody else builds a house, what happens then? Does that person automatically get connected, or do we not know that yet?
I don't think we know that yet. It's a great question, but the way the build-up let's start with the people that are here now, the locations that are here now. Whether or not someone at an occupant, residential or business, subscribes to the service, the build-out will happen for the entire community.
Okay.
I don't know the answer to that question. I don't think the community, unless another task force member.
So I sit on the broadband task force as the select board representative. So I want to take a little step back and go a little bit more into the weeds on this. So West Bath has 1,101 locations in the town that are considered users of broadband and internet. First of all, this is literally internet. It is not your TV, your alarm, your phones, or any of the other components that are provided to us by our current franchise agreement with Xfinity. There was one grant that just closed. We're waiting to see, there were 4 communities in it, or 4 grants in there. We're trying to figure out, and we're working with Consolidated, whose Fidium is the organization. So they're prepared to, should this grant be awarded, contribute $700 per location to every one of the 1,101 places in the town of West Bath. We're trying to figure out, before any commitments made on behalf of the town, why 2 of the grants failed. We don't know if it's because they didn't have any skin in the game. Some contributed 0, and some contributed as high as $150 per location. Wherever we choose to contribute, it is paid over a 3-year time frame. So it's not all due at one time. The maximum that the town of West Bath would be responsible for is somewhere around $165,000 if we went to the 150 contributing factor towards this grant process. We've tried to do a survey and get feedback from the community as to where they are in their internet service, what they're receiving. Part of what this is to bring forward is, while today may seem sufficient in what you're receiving on the internet, as we've all seen working from home and advancing into telemedicine and any other elements that are coming down the pike, what is the need for tomorrow? So this is the last grant that we will qualify for. Right now, nearly all of West Bath is considered underserved or unserved. And so there's the elements on what that's stable. So the federal government considers 25/4 acceptable as internet service. And then you have underserved is 100, underserved is 100/20. And underserved is 100/100, and unserved is 100/20. The majority of our community falls within the underserved or unserved environment. And so when this grant, if we don't participate in this grant and it goes away, the federal government no longer considers West Bath, based upon our internet upload and download, as an unserved community, and would not actually be eligible in their current grant criteria for any of this. So the reason why this piece is important is we qualify as we sit today. We most likely will never see as high a contributing factor of worst case scenario. We're getting $550 of the $700 from Fidium if we contribute the $150. And so what we're trying to figure out is what is the community's needs, what is their desire, so that, you know, and this is going to fiber optic, it's not just broadband, we're going to the next tier of service. And that's a significant opportunity for the community to benefit from this engagement, and truly don't think this will ever be offered to us at this price ever again. So that's kind of where we are in this process. There are going to be, like, I don't know the question on if a new house is built, but every location and pole closest to them will be outfitted to the fiber optic. So if what they may be responsible, as any new house is, to bring power, phone, and internet, will be bringing the cabling to their location from the pole that's already been serviced, is my understanding of the process. David?
David Hennessy. So is West Bath can commit to a dollar number now for this application?
Not now. And it's a great question, it's something I just want to pick up that Suzanne touched upon. The range, the 15 to 0, but starting at $15 to $150 per location, in increments of $10, they're assigned point values. $15, you get 0, I'm sorry.
This is part of the application, or is it or not?
It's the application, when the application is made by the ISP, which would be Fidium, which is an affiliate of Consolidated, they would be, the supporting communities would have to indicate the amount of money that they would be contributing.
For this application?
For the application, but the money would not be.
No. What I'm saying is, I don't know how the town can commit.
Well, so we'd have to, so they talk, we're trying to figure out if, and they understand that all of these towns are waiting for town meetings.
Right.
So we had that conversation with them on what, you know, we don't know if we can commit. In theory, you know, so here, there's a couple things that we talked about with them. We're waiting, this is kind of an informative process tonight, because we're waiting to figure out why those grants failed. Because if they fail because some of the communities, so what happens if they had 7 communities that were part of that grant process, and some came in at 150 and some came in at 0, the weighted average is whatever it ended up being for that application, and maybe didn't provide enough, I'll say, skin in the game to participate in the federal funds. And so we're going to learn a lot from, and they're supposed to get feedback in theory in the next couple of weeks as to why they did not pass. And so one of the folks that we're communicating with is Rural Bath, and they've committed that they're coming in at 150. And if we choose as a community to go down that path, and we truly want to pursue the best opportunity for this, and the town says, okay, let's go in at the 150, and if we have to have a special meeting, we may have to do that, depending upon what the timeline is. We don't know the answer to that yet. But we may choose, and had a dialogue with the folks from West Bath saying, or with Rural Bath saying, you know, if we truly want to try and secure this grant money, we may say, we only want to participate with those that put $150 in, because that's the best shot at the community receiving the other $550 build out per location. So we don't know some of the answers because we haven't received the feedback on what's been successful and what hasn't, and we can kind of build our next concept.
When's the grant application due?
It's a moving target. It could be as early as next month, but I think not later than, the representative from Fidium was saying not later than April.
He thought sometime between late February to maybe May. And they're trying, because they understand that the government and the town needs for town meetings to accommodate an approval from the community. They're requesting a delay until June. We don't know if they will do that. And it's really, time is of the essence for this bucket of money out of the ARP funds, and that's kind of where we are.
Yeah.
Mike Hennessy, so who ends up owning the lines? And
So that's an interesting point. So right now, Consolidated already owns the poles, which makes it a little bit more attractive. Consolidated Fidium is the same group. Because they already own the poles, it makes it a less expensive engagement, because the other company's gonna have to rent from them, which then makes the acquisition that much more to participate. So this is kind of, I'll say, the perfect storm of it, them making this offer, the $700, they own the poles. This appears to be the most economical opportunity for West Bath to enter into this engagement.
Economical if we, in essence, become a part owner. Not so economical if Comcast can charge whatever they want.
So Comcast Television,
Not,
Alarm, those are two separate pieces.
yeah, maybe the wrong name, but
Consolidated. It's Consolidated Communications.
yes.
You're not required to use their service. You could stick with, once they do the installation, you could actually stay with, well, so our franchise agreement in West Bath is with Comcast Xfinity, I think has roughly 18 months left on it, from a TV perspective. And right now, that's probably the lion's share of internet in this community. There are some people that are getting DSL, there's some folks that don't have nothing on 3 of the roads in the community. So that you have your choice at whatever's offered. You're not, it's almost opening it up from a competing factor. You can choose who you want to use, because the lines are there to use, and whatever the service provider that you choose is whatever you choose to go with at that time. We would have, in theory, Xfinity, if we renew that franchise agreement, Consolidated, and perhaps another party. Because internet is not a franchise agreement like it is with the cable TV, mobile phone, cellular, whatever you're using Comcast Xfinity for. That TV service is not changing as it sits today.
Yeah. As far as I know, there are, I mean, what used to be New England Telephone owns their own line, and they paid for it, though not quite really true did they pay for it. But I'm still not understanding who would own the actual physical lines that go in.
They already own them today, right now.
I understand they own the phone, but if they're running fiber optics, they are going to be paying a lease fee to both CMP and to New England Telephone, depending on who owns which pole, because that varies, which is why they chop off half the pole now. But the actual fiber optic cable will be new. The town will be kicking in money to the cost of that, and I'm still not getting an idea of.
We can ask them as a follow-up discussion. I don't know the answer to that.
I-
I'm more than happy to have that conversation with them.
No, I appreciate it, thank you.
And again, this is just no commitment tonight. I mean, we'd like to say, yes, we're interested in doing it. Even if we say 0 at this point, are you prepared to say, yes, we're in for 0 funds? And then maybe feel what the next step would be from a contributing factor. We just don't want to make a definitive decision until we understand why those bids were not successful.
I would think you'd have to go in with 0 tonight.
Well, yes, we could. We also have, if we went for the 1 point at $10, and that's over 3 years, in theory, the select board has a slush fund to do that, if they so choose. I'm not recommending that tonight, but we
Well,
do
I'm
have
not
the
either,
funding.
but you're talking about probably major financial contribution from the town at some point, right?
If we go at the 150,
Yeah.
correct.
So probably at some point, so I don't feel you're right for the board to go anything besides 0 tonight without a town vote on going any more than that. So my recommendation, I support the project, but I don't support any dollar amount unless the town has a say in that.
Well, a question, really to this point, since, as Suzanne pointed out, we're And this is in part an exercise for the task force to communicate with the select board and the guest tonight about where things stand. But if the effort to extend the deadline for this application is to beyond town meeting if that's not successful, so that the application deadline falls before town meeting, I think we should also be talking about the appetite for having a special meeting to approve to consider the question of
How to proceed.
but after we get the information on the failure rate from this past spring. Because just to complete the point we were talking about earlier, so we know that there are points associated with each of these, $0 through $150 per location. And we have no idea what the total number of points are.
No, I agree with that, but I'm just saying, as far as their support tonight,
Oh,
I don't think they can go beyond 0, because that
Well,
kind of money needs to go to town meeting.
The point is really, I'm not even looking to potentially have a vote to move forward tonight. Part of it was to share, and know that we've got a lot of unanswered questions, and I'd rather not vote on anything
Well, I
tonight.
agree.
And actually say, okay, here's why these failed. And we will have feedback within 2 to 3 weeks at the latest, because this application's approaching quickly. And then if we feel as a community we want to move forward, how do we want to pursue it, at what level of commitment? And that's where we say, okay, we need to have a town meeting. If we can't have it, I'll say a special town meeting if we can't meet the deadlines. But we have to be prepared to be nimble based upon what comes back, and move quickly based upon what the needs of the application process are. And we don't know that right now, but we're trying to share what we have, what our options are, start thinking about it, on what the needs are, what we think we're gonna need in the future as a community, and then we'll get more information. We don't have it all.
Well, the board can call a special town meeting.
Sure, of course. But we're trying to, we don't know what it is yet. I guess I think a lot will have to, if we can figure out what failed in that bid process, and if we truly want to pursue this internet engagement and want to go if we choose to go that path, my recommendations, if we really want this, only partner with those that are going to have the same $150 commitment, because we will be diluting our commitment to a community that only came in with $30. And so I want to make sure if we want to pursue this, we partner with those that give us the best shot at getting this grant money. And it may, right now, only be rural Bath and us. We don't know. I know Woolwich is looking at it, and some of the other communities that are very active, and they're in the same position as we are, trying to determine the strategy based upon the bid.
So nothing's being decided tonight, you'll probably get to wait 2 or 3 weeks for more information.
Correct. I mean, we have another meeting scheduled on February 2nd. Hopefully we have an answer by then.
Katrina St. John, I just want to say thank you for all of your work on this, because I'm in support of the community pursuing it, and I'm a teacher and I've done remote learning over the past 3 years, and my kids are in school, and we can't have more than 2 devices going at our house currently, and I think that for equitable reasons, that our community really needs access to better.
Well, and that's what the concern for me is that's today's utilization.
Yeah.
What happens 5 years down the road from now? We don't know what's going to change, what equipment's going to require what connectivity, and we may be shooting ourselves in the foot not pursuing something today that gets us, really where we want to be from now and years to come.
Yeah.
And that's really the kind of my thought on that.
Thank you, and I just have one other question, are individual homeowners allowed to contribute the $150? No, it has to be.
It's a group blanket strategy from that perspective. Hold on.
Steve, here, just a comment on the monetary consideration. What Fidian is offering is better speeds, free equipment, a lower price. If it were in place, according to the current Comcast, Xfinity price structure and their claim price structure, what would be paid per house would be paid back to the individual subscriber. So that sort of rationale seems to be pretty good. In terms of the expenditure of money, it's the people that would not subscribe to any service where they would be, through their town component, putting up some money and they would get no benefit. So that's a issue that has to be looked at well in terms of at least percentage of participants and things of that sort. Another thing we'll just mention, of course, is if the town was fully wired for this really high-speed, relatively economical approach to that level of service, the town is better off in general, it's more attractive in general, but the people that aren't going to participate, they're forking over some money for no benefit, so there's those considerations.
You made an interesting point that I wanted to bring back to the surface. We all get new equipment, and whatever your current modem is, and the age of that modem is also affecting what you're receiving at your own location. And that has a huge contributing factor in itself on what your download and uploads are. And so this actually takes everyone to the same level at one fell swoop. You all get a brand new modem, and I think I want to say he mentioned a gig speed.
You're talking a gig up and down.
Yes, I mean, crazy difference in what we're seeing today. And so, so when you look at that element on bringing everyone to the same capacity, is a very interesting opportunity for the community.
If I'm following it correctly, if there's a power pole, the cable's gonna go there. There will be no dead ends.
Correct.
Low service.
It will be run to every location, whether you choose to flip it on or not. Even to your house. It's run to your home, to the outside of your home. And then whether you choose to put the equipment in your house is another story.
Can't do that.
I think that's,
You can't put equipment on a house that doesn't want it.
or if they don't want it, you know, but it's brought to your home with or without a
Well,
demand.
I have.
And I'll,
Steve Winter again, I am not sure about that, I'll phrase it. They will wire the whole town, they aren't gonna bring wires into the house unless you subscribe. So it's there, but you have to subscribe to get it in, but.
we'll confirm
And I
that.
believe I believe the installation and the modem are included if you subscribe. I think it's very well.
And what provision is being made for what comes after fiber optics, which will be new to us, but they're pretty old, actually. I mean, it's been around for a long time. And if there's anything that we know, it's that technology is going to change. So this is not going to be a permanent solution. So there's a long-term economic question as well, I think. I'd be happy to have everybody in the world have fiber optics at this point, but that's not going to be a permanent solution to communications. It's the one we have now.
Harry Estabrook, is this fiber optics capable of any medical facilities? Is it that strong, or is this?
It is, so that actually came up in the conversation. There was a physician who moved to town.
No, I mean like a commercial application, medical processing facility for future commercial development. Does it have that capacity to interact with other medical or emergency management fiber optics?
We can ask that question. A conversation, so I can answer, I think, a part of that. He talked about a physician who had moved, I believe it was to West Bath,
Rural Bath.
was it Rural Bath? So he was no longer in he was a X-ray physician. I'm sure I'm butchering that capacity. Radiologist. So, but he could not, he didn't have a physical building because he was doing all of that from working from home. And he had issues being able to communicate and look and view and create that, and was able to receive with the upgrade of service. And Bath has already had, it must have been in Bath, Bath has already had his upgrade. And there's a part called Rural Bath that did not receive this build out, and he was able to 100% do his radiology evaluations from home in real time for a medical application. So from a one-off home location, it did provide what this individual needed as a physician, but I can't answer to a facility.
Yeah. I was just curious if it had the security ability for medical information, because I know they require a much higher capacity. Is it remotely possible this could incorporate that with the cables? Okay.
Steve Winter, just a gigabyte up and down is pretty heavy. If you're talking 30 people reading x-rays at the same time, doing 1 a minute or something, you might be challenged, but anything that you can think of that might be reasonable, other than a huge group of, for example, radiologists, it should be more than capable of that.
Any other questions that you would like us to pose in our conversation with them?
I'm Susan Caldwell, and I have a comment to make. And I know there might be, more things coming down the pipe that would be better, but for me right now, to be, have a Zoom meeting with a doctor and not being able to do it because I don't have the internet to do that, it's a real disadvantage. And that, I think that and it happens frequently at my house. So I just think that it's really important for us to have some upgrade. And my house isn't in a position to take advantage of other towers or whatever, so it's, I'm limited to what comes.
Well, and that's what we're receiving today. That's the concern, is what we have today and what are the needs coming at us down the road.
Right.
And we're in no capacity to go to a higher requirement right now in any nature. So this is kind of an opportunity for us to really come into the current time.
Well, I'd really like to see that, to come into the current time.
Any other questions or comments?
Cheyenne Adams, this may have already been addressed and I missed it, but what would the subscription cost be and how would that compare to current options?
Well, I have that. I said, what is the expressive price point? I don't have the answer to that. I will have it on a follow-up conversation with them.
I can say that most people in Portland are switching to Fidium from Comcast, like they're coming in at a lower rate, so, and in Bath. Competition, will bring the price down.
Competition's a healthy element to keep everybody honest. So
Absolutely.
There's no competition now.
there is not.
So, do you want us to say, continue on? We can't,
no action is required by the
Right.
board tonight, but we should stay tuned to the.
Be prepared to move.
Exactly, and to use your word, be nimble, and be ready to, if you collect the information on why the recent grants passed or failed, to be able to take action on that fairly quickly.
I really appreciate you guys coming tonight because I think you enlightened, you're keeping us up to speed, you're keeping us aware, and I'd really like to know why those bids failed. I think that's the key to going forward.
It is, and that's, if we find that the appetite is here to move forward, then we want to then choose how we partner with like-minded communities to make sure that we have the best shot at getting this last opportunity for grant money, because truthfully, come May, the federal money are going to go to unserved communities, and that $700 buy-in may go to $1,100 without support, or whatever that happens to be. So as we go down the road, it's only going to cost us more to get to what we're potentially have before us right now. at a discount. So that's really why it seems kind of urgent. It is and it's not. We don't have all the answers to take it to the next level. We're trying to gather it as quickly as we can.
But you made people aware, and that's very important, because if you came and was ready to jump, and we didn't have an understanding of what you were doing or why, and get the town's buy-in, it probably would have failed.
Yeah, oh yeah.
And Steve Winter again, but just keep an eye here on where the real decision point is. If we're talking 1,000 units, 150 per, we're talking $150,000, so we need to.
Over 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
And then,
a little bit more palatable.
yes, well, and the interesting thing is also, we had Christine pull the numbers, and we were at 1,472 locations that we had in town, but Fidium only has us in an 1101. And we asked that question on the call, and it's like, it's based upon their numbers at the time they pulled that, so there's a lot of kind of opportunity right now, because whatever their last survey was, we have a 30% delta in where we are right now. So that even falls into more of a fee down the road, should we bump up to our 1,470 whatever locations that is. So there's a lot in play right now that we're trying to corral and move forward.
Are we all set?
I think so.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you for doing this.
Business item number 3, town administrators report.
Okay, I have a few items tonight. First of all, I have an update on the boundary between West Bath and Bath. Of course, at your last meeting, you voted to move forward with the survey. So I contacted the attorney that we're working with from Sally's office, and he recommended a different approach. He really doesn't want us to go down that path. So he arranged a meeting with me and with Mark Myers, the city manager in Bath, and Bath's attorney. And what the two attorneys settled on was that they would come up with a scope of work to put out to bid. So we are expecting a scope of work from the attorneys by the end of next week.
And that is
And that would be for your consideration at a future meeting.
And whatever that scope of work is split 50-50 between the two communities.
That would be my understanding, yes. So we'll see where we go from there. Sightlines did submit a proposal, which I think you may have seen. So that I will let Bruce know that we're kind of pending it at this point. He, of course, he could bid on it.
Yeah.
But his proposal may look a little bit different than it does right now, depending on the scope of work. Birch Point Road. After the last road committee select board workshop, we were discussing possibly having a site visit next week on Birch Point Road to understand the scope of work that the road commissioner would like to undertake in next year's budget. Steve will be unavailable beginning this weekend through March 1st. So I talked with him this morning, and he said when he gets back in March, said it would be definitely a good idea to get everybody down there so that we're all on the same page and that we understand the two projects that will be taking place on Birch Point Road, the erosion project and the road reconstruction project. And while he is away, Nick will be filling in as road commissioner.
Are we still looking at funding, potential funding for the erosion?
We are. There's been a recent development with Maine State Retirement that involves reporting errors with employee deductions for Main State retirement at West Bath School. Deductions were being taken that were determined not to be qualifying members of the program. So the treasurer just asked me to inform you that as a result, she's going to have to do amendments to the IRS reports for 2 quarters in 2021 and 3 quarters in 2022. She suggests at this point that we talk about moving to a payroll service. And I support that idea. I think it's a really great idea. That would be for the school and for the town. And we would find some way of splitting the cost. But I think it's important to have that discussion with the school board and with Emily to see if they're ready to make the transition, because we need to do it.
I would think this would be an incentive.
Is this
Yeah.
gonna cost towns some more money because of these areas, or?
It won't, it's not gonna cost us more money, but we do have to make the employees whole, because their social security vis-a-vis the Main State retirement is now out of whack. So there's a few employees at the school that we will need to correct W-2s and,
But the funds are
That
just
sort
gonna
of
be
thing.
reallocated, not additional
That's-
disbursements.
that's my understanding. I don't have all of the information yet because it's sort of a new,
And so we don't have an IRS
Situation.
penalty?
there's no penalty. But this came about as a result of the Maine PERS audit, so.
Good.
Time to talk about moving to a payroll service.
And I think that eliminates just
The,
other opportunities of
Yeah, it eliminates a lot of liability. And, yeah, I think it's a really good idea.
and it doesn't change the school's ability to control their own funds.
Right.
Just make sure the payroll was accurate. Interesting development.
So that's all I have tonight.
Future agenda items.
I think we should plan out an update from the Broadband Committee. What do you guys think?
Sure. All the time.
And what's
Yeah.
Could they be on
Slow.
the agenda for all our selectmen's meetings until we finally have?
Yeah, I hope that we have some more information by February 2nd, because Allison Hepler will be at that meeting. And since the town of Woolwich is one of the, potential partners, it might be good to have her brought into the conversation too.
We will do our best to get that resolved. Well, there's one thing that we didn't talk about, that we've, regardless of where we move in the future, we have just an update on some of the things that we were working on behind the scenes. We've had all the new poles that were necessary have been installed on, I believe it's just Mountain Road. We are waiting for CMP, which is the first move to the new pole, and then once they put the power, they will then run internet service to the locations that have not had it for 17 years. So it is, wherever we end up, there will be an improvement for 3 roads in this town that have never had internet. So we're almost there.
Just on the Birch Point Road, is a potential grant for the washout
I
erosion?
keep looking, but it's very tricky because there aren't any grant programs that want to give municipalities money for roads.
What, I thought if it was
I mean the erosion.
under.
Yeah, I mean, it's possible. There's one grant that I'm looking at right now that may be able to give up to $50,000 for climate resiliency. That's a possibility to fill out the money that we already have budgeted, but $250,000 was approved for that. particular project, it's not gonna be enough. So we need to look at ways to get as much funded as we can.
Well, and there's certain, I think there's some state funding that has not been dispersed that may cover some of that for road and infrastructure.
Yeah,
That may be an opportunity as well.
right. And we do have about $30,000 left in our portion of the ARPA funds that could be used for some purpose.
Could that be rolled into our FIDIum?
It could be.
I think there's gonna be a
Just
lot
saying.
of competition to that.
It's an option. I mean,
It is-
there's different ways that we can approach it.
Yeah, I really see us, what is the town's priorities gonna be?
Yeah,
That's
and
gonna
I
be
think that
interesting.
it's important to allow the town to weigh in on
Yeah.
it. Because we may not really have a true idea of what the community's needs are, unless we put it out there and say, hey, you know, do you think this is a good idea?
We may just do the erosion piece of Birch Point and Ophidium and who knows? But it will be the townspeople who decide that. Perry?
Is there any avenue through EPA or DEP, because this is a failing road that's affecting the ocean?
I can check in with them again. I did check in last year and they didn't have any programs that fit at that time, but I can certainly make the call. Because there's federal money coming all the time and they may have something new.
If maybe Steve could look at it, you could look into it, there's different ways to build the road now. So I mean, maybe we can just add additional funds to the road construction, which incorporate a structure to prevent erosion. You know, it's like, we know we gotta rebuild the road.
Mhm.
You know, there's different ways of doing that, so, you know, if that's a potential, you know, there's new components out there every single day that will do what we need to do on both sides of the erosion and the road construction.
You mean it had an interesting composite road surface?
No, it's just,
That came out
it's
also.
pre-stressed concrete panels, you know, and there's just different ways of building roads now, so maybe we can work that in.
Have you talked with, Androscoggin about what they're doing about their potential flood over their entire Main Street? Because I was at a meeting a couple of years ago where they
Yeah.
were being held up as being very climate ready.
Yeah, and I'm not sure which programs they took advantage of, but they did receive some funding for that.
Now, it's not quite the same, but it's a similar sort of situation.
Yeah.
High tide is going to make well, it'll take a while to make Birch Point an island, but we might end up having to build a bridge.
We should talk to our area reps and send it to have them.
Yeah, and that's the main reason why Allison is coming to your next meeting. She wants to know if there's anything, you know, state legislature related that you really want to talk about.
You all come. I'm sure everybody has ideas about what the legislature ought to be working on.
Yeah, and she's very receptive, so she'll be open to any comments that people would
One
have.
other public comment. Do we have opening on boards and committees in town?
We're not at public comment yet, but yes, we do.
So I'm gonna say if anybody here would like to volunteer for certain committees in town, please feel free to step forward.
I wonder if at one of our next meetings, we should have our wardens, wardens that come in and just tell us how things are going, how it's working for them. It's a good idea.
Yes, David, you bring up a topic that I would love to see the town do something at the firehouse that has every committee that we have in this town have a little almost where you can career fair it and go around and find out what the committees are, what they do.
Callie's right here.
How to
in the
join
town
them.
office.
Because I think there's people don't know how to become engaged, and I think that'd be a great way for the community to hear what's available and.
We did receive an application for the Budget Advisory Committee today.
Sounds good.
Any
We have
other
7 members already.
future agenda items? Let's go to public comment. Yes, Mr. Winter.
Steve Winter, since we're talking about trails at the beginning of this meeting, I think a lot of other people think any trails we can have gives an opportunity for people to get out, get some exercise, whatever. The over-the-hill ATV folks have done admirable stewardship of the trails they are taking care of. In order to make them more available perhaps to the folks in town, it would be nice to get a better map and in particular some description of how one could access the trails and perhaps where to park. And as well as presenting an issue, I can offer, I might be able to help in the mapping at my usual hourly rate for the last few years, which has been 0. So if I can do anything to help toward that effort, I would like to.
But that would be another thing I would add into the workshop. Here's what West Bath has. Go to where your heart pulls you, and whether it's ATV or committees, I think I'd love to see us share that with everyone who has an interest.
And I think if this trail thing gets off the road, somehow combining over the hill and this trail group would be really.
I apologize, I just have to stand, my leg is.
Fair
Sit
enough.
down, Suzanne.
Suffer.
Yeah, when Steve mentioned over the hill club, CMP actually has a no trespassing policy for their power lines, so you're not allowed to actually walk their power lines unless you're an ATV organized club and they have gained permission from CMP. So, we all used to use power line, never thought anything about it. Yeah, so.
Which is why CMP is the policy.
Any other public comment? I make a motion that we adjourn.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Thank you, everybody, for coming tonight.